Welcome back, everyone. Dennis here again. Time for another video. And today we are going to revisit some of our popular subject, I guess, the Log4OM application. And this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the process of installing the new version, 2.0. Actually, in this case, it'll be 2.0.4 because I'm a little behind times. And we're going to show you how to install it. We're going to show you how to import your contacts from the old version. And we'll run through some of the basic config. But try to show you as much as we can without making the video too long. So we'll see how things go here. And we'll start by showing you where to go to download it. As always, the website is www.log4om.com. And if you go to log4om.com/download, you will see here you'll be able to download the 2.4.0.0 version. Make note that it does require .NET Framework 4.7.2. And I don't know if Windows will be installing it on Windows 10. I don't know if Windows 10 comes with that by default, or if I had to actually install it myself at one point. I don't quite remember, but it should the installer should come up with an error message if you don't have 4.7.2 installed. So download that, save it to whatever location you normally save your files to. For me here, it's just in my downloads directory. Once you have the file downloaded, it does come in zip format. So you want to, actually, we'll go back here. You can right click on it, select extract all, tell it where you want to extract it, hit the extract button. Now for me, I've already done that. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on the icon. This will bring up the installer. Hopefully on your system, this will come up a little quicker. For me, bear in mind I'm doing this in a virtual machine, so it's a little underpowered, but it'll do the trick. If you do see this, Windows protected your PC, make sure to click More Info and select Run Anyway. We know that this is a safe application, and basically what this is saying is that they just didn't register with Microsoft to get a digital signature for their package, which it doesn't matter one way or the other, to be honest. This is just a volunteer group of guys putting together this application for free for us radio operators. So click Run Anyway, and we'll pretend that screen never came up. And eventually here you will get the setup screen. First box that we'll get is a language. You can select, they have various languages: Dutch, English, Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese. We'll select English for the purposes of this video. And the next step is we'll have to accept the license agreement. So we will click Next. Feel free to read through it. Basically, it's the same kind of deal as what the older version would have had. And actually, this was written in 2018, so probably around the time they started working on this. Next. For me, I always install it in the default location just for convenience sake. Now you'll notice they call this Log4OM Next Gen. This is actually pretty neat because it installs the new version in a separate folder, and you can actually run the two versions side by side. But for now, we'll click Next. And we'll also do an OmniRig installation. Leave that default. Next. Of course, we want to create a desktop shortcut. Next, and install. And it's not a super long installation process. It just goes through its thing. It'll create a desktop icon, and here you'll have some release notes that'll tell you what's different in 2.4. Honestly, I didn't bother reading through that because I never... this is the first version that I've tried to use. I never even bothered with 2.0. Basically, my theory behind it was I wanted to let the new version bake in for a bit before I started using it. Next. For the purposes of this, we won't run the omnirig setup. We'll do that in another video later on. For now, we won't launch the next gen. We'll just click finish. So before we launch next gen, what I would suggest doing is bring up the version 1, open up version 1. Now, you'll be familiar with this version from my previous videos, but that's where that's the version that we did the videos on previously. There we go. Now, if you do, on my main machine and my main logging program, I've still been using the old version. This new release box will pop up every time, no matter what. But the purpose of this is basically we need to get our contacts out of the old version so that we can import them into the new version. It doesn't do a direct upgrade, from what I understand. The format of the SQL tables that are used, that uses SQLite or MySQL, the data format is different. Or whether it's SQL or not, I'm not 100% sure. I could be wrong on that, but there is a difference in the data format that the old version uses versus the new. So what we're going to do is we're going to export ADIF, which is a standard format for exporting contacts. So to do this, we do File, Export ADIF. We'll select the file that we want to export to. So you'll see I already have one there, but I'll tell you more about that later. And we'll call it, say, backup. Save. ADIF version for this, I don't believe it makes a difference which one you use. Version 3 seems like newer, so that's what I use. And leave the rest default, and then click export. And that's it. And now it doesn't give you a confirmation to say that it's done, but once it gets to the end, that usually means it's done. And you'll see here we have one we have one contact that we exported. So you can now close this version, so that way we won't get confused with what we're doing here. And for what it's worth, for the purpose of this video, I won't be using this backup file, so I'm going to delete that. I'm going to be using this ADF file here, which is actually a backup of my actual log that I intend on using. So the next step, double click and load Log4OM Next Gen. And again, it's probably a little bit slower loading on my machine than it would be on yours. But you'll see here that we do get a splash screen. And we do get a little more information now. It will show you what modules of the application that's loading, but that's really, don't need a whole lot of that for now. We see a welcome message to version 2. Feel free to read that through. I would highly recommend donating to this group here. Danielle is the main developer. However, there's a group of people that help test and develop and implement new features. So if you do have a little bit extra, I know this at this particular time may not be a good time for everybody, but if you do get a chance to, or if you do have a little bit of extra money that you can spare, please go ahead and donate to these guys. It's well worth it. So now, once you clear that, you'll notice that we will have this configuration screen come up. The first thing that it's going to ask you is you're going to have to fill out some basic information as to your station information, like your call sign, your region. The good thing about this application is it actually, when you fill in some of this information, it automatically populates, or it can, like your IARU region, ITU, and CQ regions. It can automatically populate that. So I'm going to start by putting in my call sign. And if we do click the locator button and click there, see how, so if we do the station country, it'll automatically come back, looks up my call sign, says I'm in ITU region 2, CQ zone 5, and IARU region 2. You can put your info in here. You don't. I'm not going to bother filling in all of this now. Special interest groups, info, operator call sign. Here in Canada, generally, my operator call sign and my owner call sign and my station call sign are all going to be the same. There's some room for some. If your club's associated with different things, you can add it there. You can actually specify your grid square. There we go. And I mean, you can go even further down and do the subgrid. That's fine. My station references. You don't need to do anything here. Station configuration, my rig. I'm still using my trusty 570S. I also have a ICOM 756, the original version, and I still have an off-center fed dipole. Oh, works well. Oh, typing is not my thing today. There. You can do confirmations. I'm going to run through quickly some of the settings in here just so you can get an idea of what there is. It's the same kind of stuff that there is in the old version, but it looks slightly different. So for me, the default confirmation for awards for me is Logbook of the World. That should be a no-brainer. Requested, received, requested. You can set defaults, do all that. Just so you know, when you go from one screen to the other, it will save your settings there for now. Now, the database, most often you're going to want to use SQLite. And unless you're, if you know what you're doing and you know how to use MySQL, go ahead and use that. But SQLite is basically just a file. So we'll click New. And what we will do is we won't use the old one that we did, but we'll create a new one. XT next, and we'll call it NextGen. And we'll do save. Database successfully created. You can click test. Connection successful. There's no real connectivity issues with a flat file like this. So now that we have that, we have database, external services. Here, if you're using Logbook of the World, you can configure your user password. You'd have to have TQSL installed, station ID, private password, all that stuff. EQSL, same thing. QRZ.com, if you have an API key. There's another place where you can configure QRZ.com lookups for call sign info. User preferences, preferred bands, preferred modes, select. Here I would say if you're so this will overwrite user grid square in the main UI based upon what it looks up. Grid square length, you can either do 4 or 6. Preferred bands, the bands that you generally prefer to work. For example, I don't do 160, and I could remove anything above, for example, well, we don't do 4 meters here. And 1.25, I don't have a capability. And then, for example, you can remove anything above 70 centimeters if you don't do any of that. And again, I don't do things like amateur television, RDOP, mTOR, FEC, that sort of thing. So you can deselect anything. It just kind of cleans up the UI. And it's not a bad idea to randomly save your configuration. Cluster, again, you can configure the cluster. You can do cluster auto start. You can run your own cluster server if you want in this version, which is pretty neat. That I'm going to look into a little bit later, another point. But you can have your cluster, you can configure your cluster server and that sort of thing. Different statistics on your screen, so whether you work that country or not, sort of. Now here's where, if you're using info providers, for example, QRZ.com, for looking up the details of your contacts. So like when you type in the call sign, it fills the extra details. Put your username and password here, and you can also use hamqth, QRZCQ, and hamcall. Map settings, you can have world map, different styles. I like this first style. You can even create your own, apparently. So we'll leave it on the default. Backup. Due to safety reasons, backups cannot be disabled. This is great. It's extremely important to create a backup so that if something happens to your application or your PC, you'll be able to restore it if you have to reinstall it and move on to a new computer or laptop or whatever. I highly recommend putting your backup elsewhere. So don't save it on this machine. If you have a network attached storage or if you have an external hard drive or something, I would highly recommend putting it on that. For example, on my regular machine, my backup folder is in my Dropbox account, which synchronizes with a bunch of different computers in the house and will allow me to restore that from just about anywhere. I'm just going to put the backup as being the desktop for now. I don't recommend that because it would just fill up your desktop, and that would be still on your local machine. You can also enable a second backup folder if you wish. FOA cap, you can do, that's propagation. Auto start, there are processes and things you can actually auto start, which I haven't played with this, but this would be great because I generally do pretty much all FT8 work or FT4 in WSJTX. So theoretically, I could have this set up so when I open Log4OM, it automatically opens up my other applications like my WSJT and my JT Alert. However, I haven't tested it. I don't know if it works really that way or not, so we'll see. Audio devices, if you're recording audio, that sort of thing, and if you're doing audio stuff within the application, CAT interface, Hamlad, or OmniRig, and your configuration. Looks much better than the other version. Here we can define a PTT key. So yeah, this is definitely something to play with. Software again. So with this version, you can connect your applications like your WSJTX and your JT Alert in the same way that you used to in the past, using UDP, or this can be done for generic applications that don't have specific integration. However, with version 2, you can automatically import your QSO from JT message number 12, which is basically like importing it directly from JTDX or WSJTX, I believe. Again, it's not something I've done or have used. I like JT Alert because with JT Alert you have all the extra functionality. But this is something to look into. Maybe we'll give that a test. FLDigi, you can integrate directly with FLDigi here. Configure the parameters there. And of course, it integrates with antenna rotators, and you can also import QSOs directly from an ADF file. So if you have another application, I guess, for example, if we're using an application such as I don't know, N1, N1MM or whatever. There's a popular contest logger there that people use. So maybe you could be using that to log your contest, even though this application does have contest features. We'll say that. But if you're logging with N1MM or something like that, you could automatically monitor the ADIF file and import them directly. Again, I'll have to state that I haven't used all of these features. I'm still kind of learning the application myself. But if you're someone who's used this a lot or has more experience than I do in this, and you have some additional information, please by all means post some down in the comment section of the video, and I will possibly in the future I'll do like an update video, or the next video I do, if I'm doing some sort of other feature, I can I'll add the corrections to it there. So when you're all done going through this, click save and apply. Now that and you will very often get this. Windows will ask you if this application can have network access. Allow, because we're going to need that. The other thing that you may want to do is let's see here. settings, program configuration. We'll go back in to the config. So this is one thing I forgot to show you in the beginning. This is very similar to the previous version where you get configuration IDs and you can have multiple configurations. The cool thing is you can create a link on the desktop to run Log4OM with this particular configuration, which is great because if you have, let's say for example, you have multiple call signs or multiple locations, or you have a cottage where you operate portable and you want to keep a separate log on your laptop and you bring your laptop back and forth, you can have various configurations, and the icon on the desktop will show you, will allow you to launch that configuration very easily. So I will, since I only have basically for now one location, you could do, for example, something like this. Make configuration active. You can clone, and here we'll click create a link on the desktop. There. And now you'll see, if you look down to the bottom left, I'll move this here. Now you have an icon here that will launch this particular configuration. So if you had multiple configurations, you could have multiple icons. Now, as you can see, right now we have nothing in our list of QSOs. So the main part I've been trying to get to, we had to take a little bit of a detour to get there to show you some of the features and stuff of the application. But we want to import the ADF file that we backed up in the very beginning. So we go to File, Import ADIF. Now, for me, I'm going to do Load, and I'm going to import this. It's a 2 megabyte file. So for example, you can, I don't know the entire process that it goes through or where it actually checks, but it does check some of these QSOs to make sure that, I believe for things like DXCC entities, and things change over time, like DXCC entities that are recognized or not, that kind of thing. So it goes and does a check, and you'll see in the pane on the bottom here where it will show you the output. It will tell you what it's doing. So for example, you can do apply quality check corrections. So basically it will do the quality check and automatically apply the corrections. It will suggest corrections, or you can skip them entirely. Seems logical to apply the quality check because you want to be as up to date as possible. There could be other reasons why you wouldn't. I am not sure, but for this example, I'm going to select that, and then we're going to click import. Now, while this is happening here, this is going to take a few minutes to run through the import, and we can see down here, DXCC has changed from, now unfortunately I can't scroll, and I can't at the moment make the window bigger, so I can only guess what we're saying here, but it does say that some of these DXCCs have changed from, for example, 291 to, I don't know. Now you will look up at the top here, say FD8 country has changed from, so I don't know if that was Macedonia to something else. It's very possible, for example, that a country itself changes its name. And once it changes its name, well, you may want your contacts to reflect the name of the new country or the new DXCC entity so that you get credit for it when you're supposed to. So once it does, it checks all the contacts. I've only got 1,516. Obviously, I'm not that active, but you'll see here it's also going to search through the awards. It will update itself so that when you look at the awards and where you stand with the awards in Log4OM, everything will be updated and ready to show you the correct information. And again, if you have thousands upon thousands of contacts, it will definitely take a little bit longer to parse through this than you would expect, maybe, but it doesn't take too long. It only took a few minutes. Of course, we do have some, I forgot to point out that we do have some details on what it's actually doing during this process down at the bottom. And just for now, I am going to save this log because I'm interested in looking at it. But we have save completed. We can X out of this, and now we have all of our contacts imported into here. So that's basically what I wanted to show you. I showed you how to export your contacts from your old version, a brief run through of all of the configuration settings in the settings interface there, and how to import your contacts so that you can hit the ground running. Hopefully we'll get a chance to do another video relatively soon where we'll be able to go through some of the additional features again. Maybe we'll set up WSJTX, JT Alert, that sort of thing, test out some of the features, make a couple of contacts even. We'll see how that goes. But for now, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, by all means, please give it a like. If you like my channel, if you like this video, feel free to subscribe as well. Click the bell icon so that you do get notifications when I do upload a new video. And if you're still interested in using the older version, for example, I really don't have a reason to change to the newer version other than I like to play with new software. But if you're one that likes to stay on the tried and true, go back and take a look at my older videos. I do some similar run-throughs of the older version to get you up and running. So for now, we'll say 73, and everyone stay safe, and please don't buy up all the toilet paper. Leave some for the rest. Thanks. Bye.